They're not making headlines. They're not holding press conferences. But behind the scenes, some of America's most iconic companies are quietly packing up and heading north. To Canada. Is it about lower taxes, out-of-control regulations, or something even deeper? While the media stays silent, we're pulling back the curtain. Because this isn't just business as usual, it's a stealth migration of US industry. And once you see who's moving, you'll understand. This is the beginning of an economic power shift no one's talking about. Number 6. Coca-Cola. America's favorite soda is sneaking out. Think about summer in America. Hot dogs on the grill. Baseball on TV. A cold Coke in your hand. That red and white can isn't just a drink. It's a cultural icon. It's been part of backyard BBQs, road trips, and lunch breaks for over a century. So what if I told you that this symbol of American tradition is now quietly disappearing? Not from store shelves. From the United States. No bold press release. No media coverage. No official farewell. But behind closed doors, Coca-Cola is slowly, and strategically, relocating parts of its empire to Canada. It started quietly. A new packaging plant popped up in Ontario. Then came the aluminum sourcing agreements in Quebec. These weren't expansion moves, they were escape routes. Why? Because US tariffs on imported aluminum hit hard in 2025, driving up the cost of cans dramatically. And for a company that sells over 1 billion cans every year, that's not a bump, that's a financial earthquake. Coke was faced with two options: absorb billions in extra costs and pass them on to customers, or find a way around it. So they picked the second door, and walked through it quietly. Into Canada. Here's where it gets serious. This isn't just about aluminum. This is about jobs, about supply chains, about national identity. Coca-Cola employs thousands across US factories, and every time production shifts north, that number thins out. Line by line, shift by shift, small towns that rely on bottling plants and distribution centers. They feel it first. Fewer trucks, fewer orders, fewer paychecks, and all the while, prices at home creep higher. That 12-pack that used to cost $4.99. Now it's $7.49. Not because the soda changed, but because the cost to make it here exploded. And when you start seeing "Made in Canada" printed on the side of your Coke can, it won't just be trivia, it'll be proof that another piece of the American manufacturing story has quietly crossed the border. Let's not pretend this is some one-off decision. This is Coca-Cola we're talking about. A brand that has operated in more than 200 countries. A global player with endless resources. If they think it's smarter to shift production out of the US, what message does that send to smaller companies? And more importantly, who's next? McDonald's, Ford, Tesla, even entertainment brands are starting to scout cheaper deals across the border. What we're watching isn't just one company chasing savings, it's the beginning of a migration. One where factories hum quietly in Ontario while warehouses empty out in Ohio. And Coca-Cola's move, that's just the opening act. Stay with us, because what comes next will make you rethink what "Made in America" really means. Number 5. General Motors, from Detroit muscle to Canadian precision. Once upon a time, General Motors wasn't just a company, it was a symbol. A badge of pride, a pillar of American manufacturing. The name behind your grandfather's Buick, your father's Chevy, and half the memories tied to every open highway in the US. GM was the heartbeat of Detroit, the definition of American grit and industrial power. But in 2025, that heart is beating somewhere else. GM isn't staging a dramatic exit. There's no grand goodbye to the Motor City. No protests, no headlines. Just 1,000 small moves, all pointing in the same direction, north. Toward Canada, while Americans are left scratching their heads, wondering why their cars now cost $7,000 more than just a few years ago. GM is playing chess. Quietly, strategically. Let's break it down. When tariffs on steel and aluminum hit US supply chains like a wrecking ball, it didn't just dent profits, it shattered the foundation. Car companies don't build vehicles in a vacuum. They need thousands of parts from hundreds of suppliers. And suddenly, those parts got a whole lot cheaper. Not here, but in Canada. So what did GM do? They didn't complain, they calculated. Since 2020, General Motors has invested over $2.6 billion into its Canadian operations. This isn't small change. They've opened a major electric vehicle drive unit plant in St. Catharines, Ontario. They've teamed up with South Korean giant POSCO to build a $1 billion CAM battery materials plant in Quebec, the guts of the next generation EV. This isn't about diversification. This is about building the future elsewhere. Meanwhile, back in the US, the picture isn't so pretty. Factories are slowing. Plants are shutting down. In April 2025, GM's CAMI assembly facility in Ingersoll laid off nearly 1,200 workers, allegedly to retool for the next general models. But let's be real, when companies say, "We'll call you back later," they usually don't. And as those assembly lines go quiet in Ohio and Michigan, the hiring boom is exploding in Ontario and Quebec, especially in smart manufacturing, software development, and advanced dev systems. Engineers, coders, robotics experts, all getting snapped up north of the border. The new innovation capital for General Motors. It's no longer Michigan. Now, if you look at GM's public messaging, it still waves the American Jobs banner. They still show up at union talks. They still sponsor halftime shows in the NFL. But behind the curtain, every dollar invested in Canada is one less dollar going into Flint, or Detroit, or Toledo. And those missing dollars, they don't just affect one factory. They erode communities. When the plant cuts shifts, the diners shut early. The schools lose funding. The tax base dries up. People move away. Hope leaves with the paycheck. This isn't about politics. This isn't a protest move. This is a cold business decision, made in boardrooms, not ballots. The message is simple. If it's faster, cheaper, and easier to build a car in Canada, why stay loyal to the chaos of the US market? It's not just aluminum and batteries, it's the future of mobility. And GM, the original king of American muscle, is already betting that future isn't in America anymore. That should send chills down your spine. Because when the biggest player in US auto manufacturing starts building its foundation somewhere else, you better believe others will follow fast. Number 4, Alcoa, America's metal giant is melting away. Aluminum rarely makes the headlines. But look around, it's everywhere. In your car, in your soda can, the wings of airplanes, the doors on skyscrapers, even in your phone. And for over 100 years, Alcoa has been the silent giant behind it all, the bones of modern industry, forged in American furnaces. But in 2025, that giant, it's melting away, and it's doing it one quiet shift at a time. The warning signs. It started slowly. A plant slowed here. A night shift disappeared there. Then the storm hit. Power prices in the US soared, turning smelters into money pits. Equipment aged. Repairs dragged. Costs exploded. And then came the final blow. A 25% tariff on imported aluminum, imposed by the US itself, a move meant to punish foreign metals but ended up choking its own industry. Alcoa was already wobbling. That tariff, it sent them looking for the exit. No press conference. No drama. Just movement. There was no media outcry. No viral headlines. But in smelter towns across Texas and Kentucky, the silence grew louder. Furnaces idled. Workers sent home, temporarily. The promise of return growing colder by the day. Meanwhile, up in Montreal, things were heating up. Alcoa's facilities in Baie-Comeau, Quebec, roared to life. The company inked long-term hydroelectric contracts, locking in 2,100 megawatts of clean, cheap power through 2040. That's not a temporary strategy. That's a future being carved in Canadian rock. The numbers don't lie. In Q1 of 2025 alone, Alcoa took a $20 million hit from US tariffs. Q2, they're projecting a brutal $90 million loss. And they've said it plainly, buried in investor calls and earnings reports, we don't plan to restart idled US smelters anytime soon. Translation, we're not coming back. Why would they? Let's be honest, Canada rolled out the red carpet. Cheap hydro, stable policies, no tariff insanity, minimal red tape. While American operations suffocate under ballooning utility bills and bureaucratic chaos, Canadian plants are humming like tuned engines. Every shipment of aluminum cast in Quebec and trucked south across the border is one more nail in the coffin of US production. Because here's the truth, it's cheaper to make aluminum in Canada and ship it to the US than it is to make it in America at all. The real cost. This isn't just a story about smelting. It's about collapse. Entire communities were built around Alcoa. Towns where everything, the diners, the high school football teams, the 4th of July parades, existed because those furnaces ran 24/7. Now, truck drivers are being told, no load this week. Maintenance crews are being let go. Local suppliers are watching orders vanish. Not because demand dropped, but because the metal is coming from somewhere else. From Canada, this is the quiet tragedy of modern industry. No dramatic factory closures. No news cameras at the gates. Just a slow, steady bleeding of jobs. Of purpose. Of identity. One less smelter. One less paycheck. One more American town fading from the map. Alcoa isn't making a political statement. It's making a business decision. And that decision is clear. The future is no longer forged in Pittsburgh. It's being poured in Quebec. And the rest of us, we're just watching the glow fade. Number 3. Campbell Soup. When even soup leaves the country. Some brands just feel untouchable. Warm, familiar, timeless. Campbell's is one of them. Red and white cans stacked in pantries from coast to coast. A bowl of chicken noodle on sick days. Tomato soup with grilled cheese on a rainy afternoon. It's more than food. It's comfort. It's home. So you'd think soup would be safe. You'd think Campbell's would be the last company to ever leave America. But in 2025, even soup is quietly heading for the border. What happened? It comes down to aluminum. More than 90% of Campbell's products come in aluminum cans. That's the backbone of their business. But in 2025, aluminum turned toxic, not literally, but financially. Thanks to a series of crushing US tariffs and raw material shortages, the cost of aluminum exploded. Suppliers raised prices. Utility bills surged. Packaging became a nightmare. For a company that sells millions of cans every week, this wasn't a bump in the road, it was a collapse of the economic model. Campbell didn't make a fuss. They didn't send their CEO on a media tour. They did what smart companies do. They pivoted. The quiet move. They started rewriting contracts, not in New Jersey, but in Ontario. They posted job listings, not in Pennsylvania, but in Toronto and London, Ontario. There were no billboards, no press conferences. But behind the scenes, the migration had begun. It's not dramatic, not yet. But it's deliberate. One can, one shift, one city at a time. And this isn't just about soup. Campbell's may be the name on the label, but there's an entire ecosystem behind every can on your shelf. A label printer in Ohio. A carrot farmer in Michigan. A metal lid manufacturer in Illinois. A truck driver hauling pallets from Pennsylvania to Portland. When even part of Campbell's production moves to Canada, that whole network starts to shake. These aren't just numbers in a spreadsheet, these are families. Local jobs. Entire towns built on dependable contracts. And when those contracts cross the border, those towns feel the sting. The numbers are clear. Campbell's 2025 financials said the quiet part out loud. They downgraded growth expectations from 11% to just 6 to 8%. Why? Because aluminum wasn't just expensive, it was unsustainable. The tariffs hit like a hammer. Power prices doubled. Freight costs rose. It was death by 1,000 cuts. Instead of lowering prices for consumers, Campbell did what many legacy companies are now doing. They're not cutting prices. They're cutting ties. What happens next? Canada isn't just cheaper, it's smarter for business right now. Stable power from hydroelectric grids. Friendly regulations. No tariff chaos. A government offering incentives, not obstacles. So why wouldn't Campbell shift more operations north? It's not betrayal. It's survival. Look at your label. The next time you pull a can off the shelf, chicken noodle, tomato bisque, maybe chunky beef stew, take a second. Look at the fine print. If it says, made in Canada, know this. That didn't just happen. It's the result of a calculated move. A response to an economic storm. A quiet migration that's hollowing out another piece of American industry. One spoonful at a time. Because if even Campbell's Soup, the comforting soul of America's pantry, is quietly crossing the border, how many others are already halfway there? Number 2. Tesla. The future is being built. Somewhere else. At one point, Tesla was the crown jewel of American innovation. The rebel, the disruptor, the electric empire rising out of Silicon Valley and sprawling into Texas, Nevada, and beyond. It wasn't just a car company, it was a symbol of possibility, of the future, of what America could still build. But in 2025, that symbol is shifting, and not with a bang, but with a whisper. A quiet recalculation. There was no press conference. No, we're moving to Canada moment. No Elon rant on X. Just a quiet pattern unfolding. As energy costs ballooned, infrastructure aged, and environmental reviews dragged US factory projects into limbo, Tesla made its move. Not with rage, with math. And when they ran the numbers, they pointed one way, north. Why Canada? Because Canada had what the US couldn't offer, at least not consistently: stable, clean hydroelectric power, abundant battery-grade lithium, graphite, and nickel, fast-track permitting, government investment programs tailored to future tech. In Ontario, Tesla's robotics hub in Markham has quietly become the brain of its automation division. Not just a satellite, a command center. And in Quebec, Tesla is laying down the tracks for a full-stack battery supply chain, from mineral extraction to anode-cathode processing to final battery cell assembly. It's not just expansion, it's infrastructure relocation. The telltale signs. Job listings aren't popping up in Austin, they're exploding in Toronto and Montreal. Software engineers, battery chemists, roboticists, AI developers, all being snapped up quietly, with little media fanfare. And even as Tesla's Quebec sales tanked 87% in 2025, the result of /dev rebates and political tariff battles, the company didn't flinch. Because for Tesla, this isn't about this quarter's sales. It's about planting roots for the next generation of production. Meanwhile in the US, Tesla's gigafactory projects have slowed. Timelines keep shifting, permits keep stalling, power outages, political gridlock, and soaring labor costs have become the new normal. While Washington debates policy, Canada simply said, "Here's the land. Here's the power. Let's build." Tesla didn't need convincing, they needed momentum, and Canada gave it to them. The bigger picture: Tesla doesn't move alone. Where Tesla goes, a tech ecosystem follows. Battery suppliers, rare earth refiners, charging infrastructure companies, AI and software developers, solar, storage, and grid technology. So when Tesla shifts its innovation core north, it drags the future with it. Entire supply chains begin reorienting. University partnerships shift. Even startups looking to get noticed by Tesla now look toward Ontario, not Palo Alto. This isn't a breakup. Tesla still has American factories. It still sells American cars. It still wears a US badge. But don't be fooled. That Cybertruck you've been waiting on, its software brain might be coded in Toronto. Its battery born from Quebec minerals. Its frame tested in a Canadian cold lab. This is what the quiet exit looks like. Not a headline, not a scandal, just the slow migration of ambition, from red, white, and blue, to maple leaf red. Because the future isn't just being imagined anymore. It's being built, and more, it's being built somewhere else. Number 1, Ford, American steel, Canadian soil. For decades, Ford wasn't just a car company, it was the blueprint of America's middle class. But in 2024, something changed. Instead of investing in Detroit, Ohio, or Texas, Ford poured $2.3 billion into Oakville, Ontario. Why? Because while US states offered red tape, Canada offered a red carpet. Checkmark fast-tracked approvals. Checkmark 90% clean hydroelectric power. Checkmark business-friendly incentives. Originally, Oakville was set to go all in on electric SUVs. But when battery costs exploded and EV demand cooled, Ford changed course. Now, they're using that Canadian investment to build their most profitable product, Super Duty trucks. Big, gas-powered, high-margin beasts, assembled in Canada, powered by hydro. The result, 1,800 jobs created in Ontario, parts contracts shifted north, and US towns quietly lost the kind of work that once kept them alive. This isn't Ford quitting America. It's Ford making cold, hard business decisions in a world where American manufacturing is getting harder and more expensive to navigate. But every move across the border chips away at something bigger. Not just jobs, but identity. And when even Ford, the backbone of American auto, is choosing Canadian soil over American steel, you have to ask, what's left? Final words: this is bigger than one company. This isn't just about Coca-Cola, or GM, or Tesla. This is bigger. 6 American giants, each woven into the fabric of US identity, from lunchboxes to highways to kitchen shelves, are now quietly moving operations across the border. No breaking news, no public backlash, no dramatic exits, just a subtle drift north. One factory, one job, one supply chain at a time. They didn't leave in protest. They left because the numbers stopped working. Because Canada made it easier, cheaper, cleaner, and more predictable. Stability won. And here's the hard truth. When industry icons shift their bets, the rest don't hesitate. They follow. Small manufacturers, suppliers, service providers, all looking for survival in a market that no longer rewards loyalty, but punishes inefficiency. So while the logos still wave red, white, and blue, the reality, the power is shifting, the production is shifting, the future is being built under Canadian skies. Factories still hum, trucks still roll off the line, but they do it somewhere else now. This is the new silent economy. No speeches, no protests, just relocation. If this surprised you, you're not alone. If it worries you, it should. Because the phrase, "Made in America," may soon be nothing more than a memory. Like, comment, subscribe. Because the future isn't waiting, and neither are the companies shaping it.